and lots of people. This is going to be a huge session today. We've had over 100 bookings from 28 different countries around the world. We have been putting these webinars on for the last 6 to 8 months, and we're really growing a great audience of global people and global teachers who want to get connected and help each other. So today's session is on the power of pronunciation, something that I call the missing link. I think it's something that's missed out of a lot of classes. So what are we doing today? This is my question to myself, not to you. We're going to do a lot of clapping today, okay? Not for me. We're going to do a lot of rhythm today. So make sure you have your hands. If you all have your hands, I'm very happy. So today we're going to do 4 things. We're going to tell a story. I always start with some stories to give some context to what we're going to be learning about. We're going to talk about connected speech. I'm going to give you some practical ideas and have some final thoughts on what we can be doing, what I really think the importance of pronunciation is. So let's go. So I'm going to tell a short story. This is a story about the first time I went to Beijing. And before I went there, I wanted to go and talk to a taxi driver because I wanted to go to Tiananmen Square. We've all heard of Tiananmen Square. So I practiced my Chinese, and if you don't speak Chinese, it's okay. I practiced my Chinese, and I practiced every day. 我想去天安门广场，我想去天安门广场. And then I got in a taxi, and this was my taxi driver. And I said it again. 我想去天安门广场. The taxi driver looked at me, and he actually said 听不懂. So if you're not in China, 听不懂 means I don't understand. So I said it again. 我想去天安门广场. And the taxi driver looked at me again and just said 听不懂. And I was really sad because I'd studied the vocabulary, and I think the vocabulary was right. Is anyone there from China? Who is there? Betty? Someone? The vocabulary is correct, I'm sure. And the grammar is correct, I'm very sure. But the big problem was I had awful Chinese pronunciation, terrible pronunciation, and terrible tones. And this made me realize very, very early on in China. Yes, exactly, Mark. It's obviously a segue into this session today, but I hadn't studied the tones. So as we know in China, we have 4 tones, and I just didn't bother studying them. My teacher told me to, and I just didn't do it. So the problem was I had the grammar, I had the vocabulary, but I just didn't have the pronunciation, and it meant that people couldn't understand me. So I was not intelligible when I was speaking, which was quite sad. And Mark, you're based in Vietnam, aren't you? I think you're based in Vietnam. It's the same, I'm sure, in Vietnam as well. Yeah, exactly, right? So you're missing this huge part of the language. Any language needs vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, and then you can speak to people. I'm going to tell you one more story. That was my story about me not being very good understanding. One day, my mother came to China, and my mother is Australian, as we have established, and we took a flight. And this is not the flight attendant, but the flight attendant said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to experience some turbulence, so please fasten your seatbelt. And hi, Domingo. So they said, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing turbulence. Please fasten your seatbelt. Now, the lady had very good vocabulary. That's correct. The grammar was correct. But my mother turned to me and said, I don't understand. And the reason she couldn't understand was because of the pronunciation. Now, we see this a lot. I've been in China a lot, and we see this very good grammar, very good vocabulary, but we fail to understand people due to pronunciation. So this really got me thinking about what is the missing link in language learning. Is it pronunciation? So, I mean, what was the problem with this flight attendant was she had, if we look at that from the point of view of how much time she had spent studying vocabulary, grammar, or pronunciation, it probably looked a little bit like this. I am sure, because I travel the country a lot of time was spent on teaching on her vocabulary, studying new words, a lot of time spent on the grammar, but maybe not very much time spent on pronunciation. I'll come back to this a little bit later in the session. The other big part, the other story I wanted to tell you from the beginning was, now let me know if you're in Vietnam or in Iran or other countries, but if you're in China, you will see this a lot. You see, what I like to, I don't, you know, it's kind of like referring to them as robots, is we have a lot of kids and you'll say, how are you? And they say, I'm fine, thank you, and you? So a lot of this, you started making me realize that there's something that they're learning, and they're learning this from teachers. They're learning it from people like me. So I thought that, what can we do to fix this problem? So what this really, oh, hi Yolanda, good to see you. I hope everything's well in Chengdu today. So moving on, what it made me realize is pronunciation is essential to be understood, but it can be missing in many classes. So I worked as a Cert TESOL trainer and a DIP TESOL trainer, and we would watch a lot of classes, and we really started to notice how much people removed pronunciation from their teaching. And I think it's just because either they don't have the skill set to do it, or they think it's something you can add on later, or they're a little bit afraid to do it. So we really started to focus on trying to help people with teaching pronunciation. So why is this happening? I wonder, why is this happening? This leads me to the second part of the presentation, which is on the webinar, which is, I'm going to start talking about connected speech. But I want you to think about this question of, why does it happen that people don't end up focusing on pronunciation? I think there are two main reasons. Can anyone have a guess at what my two reasons are? Why we don't necessarily end up focusing on pronunciation? Or why is there a problem with my pronunciation, etc.? Alex, thank you for typing. Yeah, time, Tara. Okay, time is probably a huge one. People think that it's going to take time, right? Good one. Hi, Alice from Vietnam. Yeah, maybe lack of method. So hopefully after this. Good one, Crystal. Yeah, it can be boring, but it will not be boring anymore. Confidence, how confident they are to share. Yes, Hector, exactly. Mark Yellen, focus on, yeah, exactly, Mark. This is basically what I'm talking about today. It's assumed that you'll pick it up on your own. Yeah, I think so, Samuel, but they don't. Yes, okay, awesome. This is great. Personal divinity, perhaps. Yes, okay, awesome. I think it's really great that you're all basically saying what I'm going to say next, so I don't feel bad about saying this. I think that there are two reasons. One is there is a lot of vocabulary and grammar-based teaching methodologies. That's number one. And number two, there's L1 influence. And I'm going to talk about these two for a bit, okay? So the first one is this idea of vocabulary-based teaching methodologies. Now it has changed a lot. When I first started teaching, it was a lot of teachers, and I did it as well, come to class, hold up a flashcard and just say apple, 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 apple. I, like, apples, 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 and a lot of repetition and rote learning by focusing on each individual word. And of course, when the kids leave the classroom, they think that's how you say it. You say each individual word separately, but we know that's not right, right? Back to this graph again, and look, I'm just picking the numbers out here, but a lot of the time is people just aren't focusing on it in the classroom. So of course the kids can't end up speaking in the way that they should. I think one of the big things is this idea of time, as if you need to find a time to teach pronunciation. I think what I want, by the end of today's session, I'm confident that you'll see that you can integrate pronunciation into all aspects of your teaching. So this 5% here would be more like 50%. It would be just constantly part of the class. So this is another big thing. But I don't want to get too into that, like beating people up for not teaching enough pronunciation. I want to talk a little bit about the L1 influence, because I think it's much more fascinating for us as teachers. So what is L1 influence? What is L1 influence? Can anyone tell me? Go, Domingo. Oh, you're back again, Jerina. Okay, great, Jerina. Victor, good to see you. I remember you from before. Yes, first language influence. Exactly. What type of things do you see in the first language influence, I wonder? Yeah, right. Tones, exactly. If you're in China, tones are a huge L1 influence. Well, if you don't have them, I don't have the tones, so yes, sounds native to the L1. Yes. Okay, let's continue. So L1 influence is your first language used to speak the second language. Perfect, Brian. That was the best answer. Mother tongue, exactly, Betty. So let's have a look, guys. Negative transfer. Yes, Fat. Yes, Fatma. I like that. So a lot of negative transfer comes from things like, let's have a quick look, guys. L1 influence can be many, many things. Usually we think about it in grammar and syntax. So a lot of languages that are SVO, subject, verb, object languages, like English, Chinese, Swedish, etc., Bahasa, Spanish. If you're learning the second language, you might tend to use that order. And we do that a lot, right? Apparently when people learn Japanese and they're English speakers, they'll get all the word order mixed up because it's very hard to change that word order. And you can see here that, languages that have subject, object, verb, which would be very confusing for me, would obviously influence how you're going to speak that second language. Things like tenses, you know, in Chinese, having the past tense is very interesting. No present perfect, past tense, etc. Just having one way to say the past tense in Chinese. Pronouns, plurals, for example, subject verb agreement, like third person, etc. Time markers, all these things that might exist in one language and can be quite cultural in a sense, will influence the second language. So that's just on grammar. The next one is individual sounds, right? So we know in Chinese, for example, v is very hard to say, v, unless you are from Shanghai. And the sound zh is very hard to say. So we have a lot of people saying urally instead of usually. Now, I'm sure if you're in Iran, there might be some influence of Persian sounds that might influence the way we speak English. We know that if you're in Spanish, there are certain sounds that must have an influence. We know in Arabic, b and p are quite interchangeable, well, hard to distinguish. And these ones, the classic dentals, which are th and th, are very hard, right? So, oh, and also this is a classic one, is in Chinese, there's only n and right? So we don't have final sounds. Hence, we tend to say things like dog, I haven't, you know, I like it, dog, I am reading a book, because they don't have final sounds. So these are individual sounds, but they don't influence intelligibility that much, because you can kind of work out if you're saying usually or urally. The real one that I think has a big influence, and that's the big one we're talking about today, are what are called, L and R, exactly, Lorelli, you know, R and L. It's very interesting, yeah. So you might be eating lice rather than rice, right? Or you might be wearing a pair of Reich shoes rather than, oh, sorry, that's N and L in Chinese. So the last one here is the main one we're going to talk about. And this is, I should say, prosodic influences. And you can look up the word prosody. Is the study of the rhythm and the rhythm of the language. So prosody includes things like rhythm, stress, intonation, and syllable timing. And that's what we're really looking at in this session. Now, skip this page. So what we're going to look at now is this idea of stress and rhythm. Stress and rhythm. So to set that up, there are different types of language and how they have their rhythm of the language. Now, we have syllable-timed languages and we have stress-timed languages, syllable-timed and stress-timed. There's also a small group called Mora-timed, which I'll explain a bit later. And yes, I will. I have some good, a very good book to recommend at the end, Fazana. And there are also mixed languages. So we're going to look at this difference between stress-timed languages and syllable-timed languages. A syllable-timed language is kind of where every syllable is on a beat. It's like boom, 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 right? 你在干什么? Right? And a stress time language is like boom, 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 boom. What are you doing? It's more of a rhythm to it. So, saying that, let's have a little. Oh, sorry, I'll just give you a bit more background. Stress time languages have a lot of vowel reduction. So, a lot of vowels shrink into smaller sounds. A lot of stress on different words as opposed to equal stress. They have complex syllable structures. You know, something like saying communicate can change to communication. So communicate, communication. How would a student know that if they came from a Spanish background or a Chinese background unless you teach them that? And a bigger ratio of consonants in relation to vowels and intervals. The intervals between the syllables are very even. In a syllable time language, there is no vowel reduction. The vowels usually stay the same always. They have a fixed stress usually and a very simple syllable structure. Much more time spent on the sounds of the vowels. So, here we're going to challenge you now. Which languages do you think are stressed timed languages? And I'll give you a hint. English is stress timed, okay? Which languages are stress time languages? Can you type? Go, Mariangela. Tara. Ooh, Tara, you think Spanish, but I'm going to show you something in a minute that'll make you realize. Vietnamese? That's a hard one. No, stress timed is like English, where it's like dun, 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 dun. Right, German, Alex, very good. German is definitely a stress time language. It'll become more apparent. Portuguese is mixed, actually. Afrikaans is very stress time, not Italian, yes. Yes, Vietnamese is syllable time. French, yes. Okay, let's have a look. So for stress timed, it's usually the Germanic languages. It's usually things influenced by the Germanic languages. Even though English is also a Latin-based Indo-European language, its considered its pronunciation its prosody tends to come from Germanic-based. So things like English, Swedish, Russian, Arabic have these ideas where there's a bit of a rhythm to the language, and certain bits of, and I'll explain further, certain words will shrink if they're in next to other words. So for syllable, I'm not sure with Polish. I need to look that up. If you are Polish, let me know. That's a good one to look up. So for syllable time languages, it's the classic. It's Cantonese, Mandarin, Korean, Spanish, Italian. So Spanish, I saw Tara wrote Spanish for stress time. Spanish is very syllable timed in that each syllable is given the same weight. And you can usually tell if someone is speaking English, whether they come from a syllable time language. So Italian, you know, it might be like, what are you looking at? I know this sounds very stereotypical, but they kind of put the stress on every syllable, you know, right? Yes, Mariangela. I don't know if you're Italian, but you see my point. When it's Cantonese, if you go to Hong Kong, people will be like, you go to the shop and you buy something from the shop. That's that very sort of dong, 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 dong. Same with Mandarin. Japanese is a little different, but it's kind of more on the syllable timed. So that just gives you a little bit of background there on what is a stress timed and syllable timed. We do think of Spanish as being quite sing-songy, but it's definitely a very syllable timed language. So you can have a look at this later. I'll send this out to you in the in an email after, but it kind of gives you a nice map of where everything comes from. I really like this stuff. It's a little bit nerdy, but it's just really nice to see. So you can see all these red ones are English and Arabic type languages here. And here you can see the green is the very is the Asian, Chinese, Sino languages, and you see this is all the Spanish here. And a lot of African languages have syllable timed as well. You have the blue here, which is called Mora timed, which is only in very small places, Japan and a little island called Kiribati. Yeah, this guy Tara. It's just that the guy doesn't have all the information yet. No, not sign language. But I see your joke there. It's very good. The white. It just means the guy hasn't finished filling them in yet. He actually does ask on this site. If anyone knows, please send me. It just hasn't have them all yet. So let's just do a short case study on one language, which is Chinese and English, and see how this works. And then I'll give you some cool ideas for the classroom. So you all need your clapping hands here, okay? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not going to show you this. So we're going to look at Chinese and English, stress timed versus syllable timed. Chinese is syllable timed. Each syllable is given equal weight. Stress timed, it has a rhythm to it where the syllables might bunch together in certain parts. Let's have a look. So this sentence, if you're Chinese, you should know what this means. Don't write it in yet. Before you write it in, we'll just try to say it. It says, 你在干什么?你在干什么? How many beats are there in this sentence? How many beats are there? Yeah, right. It's very straightforward, right? 5. There's 5 beats. And Chinese is kind of wonderful that way, because we know that kind of the same rhythm. A lot of foreigners come here to China and they kind of speak it with a rhythm and it sounds a bit strange, but it's like 你在干什么?你在干什么? Even if you say it fast, it's 你在干什么? It's still got that rhythm of 5, roughly the same. It doesn't mean they're exact, but 5 beats. So if you're from China, can you please type in the meaning of this sentence? What is the meaning of 你在干什么? Thanks, Alex. Yeah, what are you doing, right? So let's have a look at this sentence. Now say it out loud to yourselves. Try to say it out loud now. And try to clap it. Now it's not what are you doing, it's just what are you doing? Can you try and say it out loud? And tell me how many beats in this sentence? How many beats? Ooh, let's listen to it again. What are you doing? Yeah, Alex, great. Yep, Tara, excellent. Anyone else? Jenny, yes, excellent, right? So it could be 3. If I said, what are you doing? That would be 3. What are you doing? But this is just 2. What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's have a look. Now you can see here, right? What are you doing? There's 2 beats. And what happens here? It just becomes, what are you? What are you, right? What are you? It just becomes, do you? What are you doing? If I was from London, it might be, what you doing, right? What you're doing. But it still has that same rhythm. So let's do another one. I want you to all say this. Oh, Tara, I want to hear what you're going to say. Can you all say these 2 words out loud? So what can you see on the screen? Yeah, Tara, exactly. But it's still what you're doing, right? It's still 2. So let's have a look at this on the screen. I'm not going to say what it is. What do you see on the screen? Try to say it out loud. And you can type it if you like. Yeah, Tara, excellent. And then you see very quickly, right? We don't say apples and oranges. We say, as Tara has rightly put here, now try to say it to yourself, what is happening with this word is apples and oranges, right? It's 2 beats. So let's have a quick look at this. I'm going to break it down for you. Apples and oranges. Now, even the Queen of England doesn't say apples and oranges. Even the Queen of England says apples and oranges. And there'll be 2 beats there, apples and oranges. What happens here is this really cool thing, which I think is just so beautiful about when you realize it's the rhythm of the English that makes these sounds disappear. So we end up with apples, oranges. We just get rid of the D. No one says apples and oranges. It would just sound so strange to say apples and oranges. If people said that, it would be very hard to understand them. Apples and oranges. We say apples, not and oranges, and the S becomes more of a Z, apples and oranges. So we can see here, some sounds disappear, the D has gone, the D sound, sorry, and the and becomes a schwa, an But we need our kids to know this. Now, here's the problem. So many people would write apples and oranges on the board, and then they would point at each word and say, apples and oranges. And there's no way that the kids would know that that's not how we speak. One more here. I'm going to do one more test with you. So the first sentence, we did it already. What are you doing? What are you doing? What do you think for the next one? How many beats? Try to say it out loud. How many beats in the next one? Yeah, Jarena, awesome. Nudges, Lorelli, great. So it seems very obvious, right? It's obvious to us because we've been speaking English either all our lives or we have done this a lot. But for a 6-year-old, how do they know that it's I'm eating an apple? I'm eating an apple. And you see what happens here is we don't even say I'm eating an apple. No one would say that. What are you doing? I'm eating an apple. We would say I'm eating an apple. This I sort of becomes a schwa. I'm eating. And then we focus on meeting and apple. And the carries over. Yeah, good, Lorelli. It carries over to here, right? We can see that the from I'm eating an apple, and we tend to say napple. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because we need our kids to know this. But how can we get them to know this? Let's look further. By the way, guys, this is all just called connected speech. I'm sure all of you have heard of this before. Things like illusion, intrusion, assimilation, catenation, and delayed plosion. Also talking about weak sounds and vowel reduction. I'm not going to go into all that today. I think the key for you is if you want to look them up, have a look. My favorite book for this is called Sound Foundations. No, Tara, I'm going to explain that now. The next part of this webinar is going to show you how you can do this with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10-year-olds. It will be subliminal, but I'll show you. Well, we're getting there. Just check out this book called Sound Foundations by Adrian Underhill, and another book called Halda. The other book is by Michael Hancock, and I'll put a link in when I send out the email. Michael Hancock is called Pronunciation Games. Excellent book if you want just a bunch of awesome games to focus on this stuff. Okay, let's continue. There's a lot. This is going to be the fun part now. Now remember, the magic, who can name this word and you get a prize. The prize is, I'm going to send you something in an email. First person to name it. Oh, Tara, no, it's not an A. What's it called? It's the only sound with a name, not A, no. Alex Lee, you win a prize. I should write down your name so I don't forget. And I'll find out what the prize will be, okay? Yeah, good, Beta. Okay, let's continue. What I started to realize is all these aspects of connected speech are caused by stress and rhythm. Because there's a rhythm, some of the words have to shrink, like, what are you doing? The are you starts to shrink because of the rhythm. So we need to make our students aware of this. We need to help them feel it and understand it. It might be subliminal, it might be explicit, but let me show you some ideas you can use today if you were in the classroom. If you're in China and you're at home, we can be doing this online as well. Let's have a look. So here come my practical tips for you to take away today. Many years in the making, okay? Let's have a closer look at what we can really do. First one is simple. Obviously, you want your kids, if I don't hear clapping in the classroom or clicking, I get a real surprise. It's like, how can you be teaching a sentence and not focus on the rhythm of it? Because it's so important to being able to be understood. So first thing is, even just online, getting all your kids when they're talking to you, every time you show a new sentence, just what are you doing, right? Get them to clap it so they start to feel it. So that's the first one. That one's easy. Clapping out any sentence. What are you doing? I'm eating an apple. What are you doing? I'm eating an apple. Okay. Next one. This is one of my favorites. This is a game we all used to play when we were little. When I was young, we would play this game, and it's called Patty Cake, Patty Cake. Remember there was a famous rhyme called Patty Cake, Baker's Man. Now, anyone can do this, and kids love doing this. So if you're in the classroom, you get them to face each other, and it would be like, so, and then you're just doing this. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. And you can start to speed up. This is an awesome one to get parents and kids to do together. If you're stuck at home at the moment due to school closures, maybe film you and a friend doing it together, or you and if you live with someone, doing it, and then send it out to the kids and get them to try. Kids will come up with so many creative ways to do this. They will start doing it in the playground. They will do it outside of class. They'll do it in break time, because you've given them something cool to do with the sentences you're teaching this week, right? Let's look at what you can do. Let's look at what you can do. Okay, so the next one is one of my favorites, and it's what we can do with blocks. I'm just going to switch over to here to the big screen and lower my computer down. Oh, yes, you can see my blocks. I think you can see my blocks. Can you all see my blocks? Yes, great, Tara. Thank you. Cool. Yup. So this is a really simple one. I take blocks into class, and then we get them to do something like this. What? What? And we hold it up, right? What? And then we say, doing. I don't know if I'm going left to right, so it should be this way, I think. I've got to do it backwards for you. What? Doing. What? Doing. But that's only the 2 words, right? Then we can do what are, what are, what are you, what are you, what are you? And then you can do what are you doing? 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 And what that makes kids do is it starts to make them realize that these 2 sounds may be a little bit different. So you can often color code if you say like yellow is the strong sound, blue is the weak sound. They start to do that. Then you might change it around and you say, I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. How would I do that? So it's if it's left to right, oh, sorry, it could be this way, right? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then it could be, right? Now, what sentence is this? Who can guess what sentence is this? We just did this sentence. Who wants to guess the sentence? So it'll be like this, right? Oh, let's see if Hector gets it. Yeah, right? Now I've just elicited that from you. And the kids start to see it, right? They start to realize it's, oh, I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. Oh, sorry, this way around. I'm eating. Should be this way, right? I'm sorry. My camera is backwards to you, so I need to work it out. Yeah, so it's I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple, and I'm eating an apple. And then you get the kids to play with the blocks and start to make their own sentences. Now, if you're teaching online at the moment because kids are at home, there is no way they don't have blocks at home. They all have blocks, right? So you get them to pull them out and you just start to say, just start to slowly scaffold it in, you know, eating apple, and then put them down and they start to build them out. Then they make all their own sentences. And then you're getting that visual cue that they're reminding themselves, more cognitive processes going on there. There's a rhythm to this. So Tara, you asked, is it subliminal? It's subliminal, but it's not subliminal. It's kind of, they're starting to realize that there's some difference here. Why is this one yellow? Why is this one blue? And they'll start to take it on. So that's one of my favorites, is the blocks. All right, we're starting to get a bit more wild now. I'm going to show you the next one. The next one is, I just want to show you I have to show you this because I work at StudyCat and we develop language learning apps for kids. And I'm very happy today to share. If anyone wants our app in this time, you can download a trial and you can share it with your kids and you can try it in the classroom as well. But I just wanted to say one great thing about this app is the amount of songs. So I'm just going to show you quickly. Oh, you're seeing my house now. So the amount of songs, I hope you can see that. So in the app, any song to me is essential to learning the rhythm of English. It's not very clear, is it, guys? I'll just try and put it up here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so let me just show you one song. Look, look, look.
Where? Look at the Bear, 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 monkey, pig,
And they can touch it.
lion,
Tiger, bear, bear, bear. There is a monkey, can you see? There is a monkey up in that tree. So what you start to see with this is, and by the way, this app has literally so many songs, 24 levels, lots of other things you can do. So I will send you a link to this after, and you can download a trial. My point with that song was you can just start to see that it's like, there is a monkey. Any song will help with pronunciation. So that's the Fun English for Schools app. I will send you a link to be able to download that later. The next one is where I'm going to make a little bit of a fool of myself, but this is Tai Chi. Now let's go back to the same sentence. I'm actually going to stand up to do this one. I hope this works. So Tai Chi is a great way for your kids to practice this. I don't mind making a fool of myself. Okay, so if you had a bunch of kids, you can be doing it like this, right? So it's, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. Now, I know that seems a little bit silly, but you'll be surprised at how much, if you just do that in class and you have a whole class of kids going, what are you doing? They absolutely love it. And it means that their whole body is feeling the language, right? I can't believe I've done that in many, many trainings, but I've never done it on a webinar, so I hope it didn't look too strange. But trust me, you try that, your kids will leave the classroom and still be doing it after class. They'll be doing kung fu moves. What are you doing? And that's great because you're getting that rhythm into the language. Yeah, exactly. Look, I've done this with university students and they love it. We do it nice and calmly. I do it as a warm-up with older kids to keep them calm before class. And they do a little bit of this, but they're also practicing the rhythm of the language, and it gets them ready for class. So that's called English. I call that Kung Fu English, or English what was I going to say? English Tai Chi. Okay. So I've got another one here for you. The next one is. Oh, no. Yeah. Well, that's why I try to do it as Tai Chi and keep them calm. Or you do it when they're leaving the classroom. So you might like say, okay, at the end of class, let's do it. Then the parents see them all doing something and they're quite excited. The next one is a really simple one. This is called Metronome Online. It used to be a very free service. I think now you can only get a limited version. But if you download Metronome Online onto your phone, metronomes, if you remember, when you play piano, it's that tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. What this helps the kids do is start to find the rhythm of the language. So it could be like, what are you doing? Now you set it very slowly. If you set the metronome to 60 beats per minute, 60 beats per minute is very slow. I can't actually show you it. I can't write very well here. I can't show you it today because it doesn't do a very good desk share, but 60 beats per minute would be like this. What are you doing? What are you doing? And then you start to speed it up. Let's get up to 70. What are you doing? 80. What are you doing? 90. What are you doing? What are you doing? We tend to speak at about 120 beats per minute in English. But what happens is if they start very slow, then they get better and better at the faster speech. Faster speech doesn't mean better speech, but the rhythm stays the same. So once we get to 120, it's kind of like, hey, what are we doing? What are you doing? I'm going to the shops. I'm going to eat an apple. It becomes very, it's kind of like the speed of the news. So that's another really cool one you can download. Which brings me to my second last one, which is hip hop. Now, you'd be surprised at how much hip hop can actually help kids because hip hop is usually produced at about 90 beats per minute, which is a really comfortable speed for kids to speak at. And if you think about rap, it's all about the rhythm, right? And all about fitting things together. So just having a bit of fun. One of my favorite ones, I will not put this in the slides because of copyright issues, but I'm happy to play it here. Download the, I'll send you some links to download, but something like this. And you can hear, I hope you can hear. And then you can start to hear like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm going to the shops. I'm going to the shops. I'm eating an apple. I'm eating an apple. And I'm going to the shops and I'm eating an apple. So you get the point there, right? That was actually an instrumental of Dr. Dre. I think it's Forgot About Dre. Anyway, my point is, if you type in hip-hop instrumental, there are lots and lots of royalty-free ones. And I just have them on in the back of the class. And what happens is when you're just practicing a sentence, just put it on and you will notice your kids will very quickly start to just get into the rhythm and feel them. It's just like giving them a little bit of support. So have some fun with hip hop instrumentals. I highly recommend them. So that's it for my what I think are cool ideas. So there was the music, metronome, Tai Chi, download our app to hear all of the cool songs in there, and the blocks. Oh, and also clapping, of course, and patty cake, patty cake. So there's lots of things you can be doing here instantly, and you can be doing them online, as I've just shown you. So just a few quick final thoughts before I wrap up. One is about accent. So many people seem to be obsessed by what accent will my child have. And there's a lot of talk about, is it an American accent or a British accent? To me, it's a silly argument because there's no such thing as a UK accent. There are hundreds of accents in the UK. If you go from the middle of the UK down to London, the accents are completely different. So I wouldn't, if any parents ask about this, I would just say, no, what's more important is the stress, the rhythm, the underlying rhythm of the language as opposed to the accent that you formed around it. And as I think it was Tara wrote before, if you say, what you're doing, if you're in the east of London, and if you're up in the north and you say, what are you doing? I don't know how they say it, but the point is that the rhythm stays the same. So my final points are always focus on stress and rhythm, integrate it. Every time you're bringing in a new sentence, integrate it, show them the rhythm, get them to clap it, do this, get out the blocks, just spend a minute on each sentence, integrate it through your class, rather than waiting to do it at the end of class. Remember, always try to introduce language in sentences or lexical chunks. Not always, but the more you do it, the more that kids will see that words change as they're in sentences and in chunks of language. To develop further learner autonomy, after a while, you write up a sentence on the board or you say a sentence and you get the kids to guess it. Where are the beats? Now, I've been doing that throughout this whole webinar, asking you to guess where the beats are. I'm not giving you the beats. And then the kids start to hear it and they go, oh, that's where it is. The real key is when they can find the beats, even when they're just reading. Try to use lots of different senses. I'm not saying that there are different learner types. I'm saying use different senses to learn. Do it visually, touching it, writing it, moving things around will help them understand the feeling of the rhythm of English. And I think as we said from the beginning, and I can't remember who said it way back in this session, was exposure is the key. If our kids are hearing more natural language, they're more likely to produce naturally sounding rhythm and stress and rhythm in their sentences. So make sure your kids, especially now if they're at home, are getting as much natural input as possible, not just what's in class, because class is not very natural. What's natural is TV shows and radios and songs. That's how we really sound. So get as much exposure in there as possible, and then kids will understand and feel the rhythm. So that's it. Before I wrap up, remember, always check us out on studycat.com/schools. You can check out the teachers page here. We have an awesome StudyCat club, which gives you lots and lots of different things to do. You can sign up here to take a classroom trial. If you go in and sign up today, I will send you out a link and you'll be able to download the app and sign in and be able to try out lots of cool activities with our Fun English for Schools app. In the StudyCat Club, you just have to sign up with an email. There are hundreds of worksheets that you can download. Awesome to share with parents at the moment if they've got a printer at home. All the last webinars are in there, so you can get access to those. There'll be lots of training material in there as well. Oh, don't know what happened on the page there. Don't know how to delete that. Clear all. Yes, no, that didn't work. You can check out our blog, lots of articles every week. And remember, most importantly, the next webinar is on creating creative learners, which is what we all want. So please, please sign up for the next webinar. It's not for 2 weeks, so I'm thinking about adding an extra one in next week because we have a lot of demand for the webinars at the moment. And so remember, that's all at studycat.com/schools. And lucky last, please add me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I often share articles and activities. It's a great place. Before we go, let me just have a look. Before we go, this is on my Facebook to email and anyone in Hanoi. Yes, awesome. Hector, you're a legend. What a really nice thing. Yeah, I really appreciate you doing that. Cool, Aurelie. Thanks, Hector. That's really nice of you. And that's it, guys. Looking forward to seeing you again in the next webinar. Always good to see you, Yolanda, Najas, everyone there. And I really enjoy this one. You can tell I'm very passionate about